I used to think loneliness was the worst thing that could happen to you in a new city. I was wrong. The worst thing is finding someone who makes you feel less alone, only to realize they were studying you the entire time. Welcome to the Last Lesson channel. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories about betrayal, growth, and the kind of karma that writes itself. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this ends. The day I moved to Seattle, it rained so hard I couldn't tell if I was crying or if it was just water running down my face. I was 21 years old, standing in front of a building I'd only seen in photos, holding 2 suitcases that contained everything I owned. My parents had driven away an hour earlier, and I'd watched their car disappear down the street until it became just another blur of red taillights in the gray afternoon. That's when it hit me. I was completely, utterly alone. This was supposed to be my dream. My first real job after college, a marketing coordinator position at a tech startup that actually paid enough to live on. I'd applied to 43 companies, gotten rejected by 42, and cried tears of joy when the offer email finally came through. But standing there in the rain, I felt like I'd made a terrible mistake. The apartment was in Capitol Hill, a neighborhood I'd researched obsessively on Google Maps, but had never actually visited. I'd found it on a roommate matching app because there was no way I could afford to live alone in Seattle. My roommate's name was Jenna. She was 24, worked at the same company I'd be starting at in a week, and had described herself in her profile as chill, clean, and always down for a good Netflix binge. When I knocked on the door, still dripping wet, she opened it with the kind of smile that immediately made me feel like everything might be okay. "Oh my God, you're soaked," she said, pulling me inside. Come in, come in. I have towels and wine. You look like you need both." Jenna had this energy about her that filled up a room. She was tall, confident, with dark hair cut into a sharp bob that made her look more sophisticated than her age. She wore oversized glasses that should have looked dorky, but somehow made her seem cooler, and she moved through our apartment like she owned the world. Within an hour, I was wrapped in a blanket on our couch, drinking wine from a mug because we only had 3 actual wine glasses between us, and laughing at her stories about the company we'd both be working at. "Trust me," she said, tucking her legs underneath her. "You're going to love it there. Everyone's young. The culture is super relaxed, and they have this amazing rooftop where people hang out during lunch. I've been there for 2 years, so if you need anything, and I mean anything, I've got your back." I felt something loosen in my chest, something that had been tight and anxious since I'd said goodbye to my parents. "Thank you," I said, and I meant it with my whole heart. I was so scared about moving here alone. This feels like, I don't know, like maybe I'm supposed to be here. She clinked her mug against mine. "You definitely are. We're going to be great friends. I can already tell." And for those first few weeks, we were. Jenna became my guide to everything. She showed me the best coffee shop 3 blocks away, the grocery store that had reasonable prices, the bus route to the office. She introduced me to her friends, other 20-somethings who worked in tech and design and seemed to have their lives together in ways I couldn't imagine. I tagged along to dinners and bars and weekend hikes, always slightly behind, always grateful to be included. At work, she'd stop by my desk just to check in. "How's it going? Is Marcus being weird?" "He's always weird with new people. Just ignore him." She'd bring me coffee without me asking. She'd invite me to lunch with her department even though I worked on a different floor. I started telling her everything. About how intimidated I felt being the youngest person on my team. About my manager, David, who was brilliant but never gave clear instructions, leaving me to guess what he wanted. About Jake, the senior designer who'd smiled at me in the kitchen and made my stomach do backflips. About my imposter syndrome. The voice in my head that kept whispering I'd somehow tricked them into hiring me, and any day now they'd realize their mistake. Jenna listened to all of it. She gave advice. She made me feel seen. "You're not an imposter," she'd say firmly, sitting across from me at our kitchen counter while I stress-ate cereal at midnight. "You're just new. Everyone feels like this at first. You're actually doing really well. I've heard people talking about your work." "Really?" I'd ask, desperate for validation. "Really? David never gives praise. But I heard him tell someone in marketing that you have good instincts." That's huge coming from him. Those words kept me going through the hard days. The days when I felt invisible in meetings or stupid for asking questions. Knowing that Jenna was there in the apartment waiting for me made everything bearable. We developed routines. Friday night wine and reality TV. Sunday morning farmers market runs. Late night conversations about our dreams, our fears, our terrible dating lives. She told me about her ex-boyfriend who'd cheated on her. I told her about my high school relationship that had ended when we went to different colleges. We traded secrets like currency, building something that felt sacred. Looking back now, I can see the moments I should have noticed. The small things that didn't quite add up. Like how she'd always ask detailed questions about my projects at work. Not just how's work going, but what exactly are you working on for David? What's the strategy? Who else is involved? At the time, I thought she was just being supportive, interested in my life. Or the way she'd sometimes repeat things I told her, but twisted slightly. I'd complain about how Marcus never responded to my emails, and days later I'd overhear her telling someone that I'd said Marcus was impossible to work with. Small distortions that I'd brush off, thinking I must have said it that way and forgotten. Or her compliments that always had a second edge to them. You're so lucky they hired someone with literally no experience. They usually want at least 2 years for that role. Lucky, as if I hadn't earned it. But I was so lonely and she made me feel less alone. So I ignored the small discomforts. I ignored the way she'd sometimes look at me when I shared good news. Her smile just a fraction of a second too slow. I ignored the competitive undertone that would creep into her voice when I mentioned getting praise from David. I told myself I was imagining things, that I was being paranoid, that this is what friendship looked like. 3 months in, I got assigned to a major campaign, a product launch that would be the company's biggest marketing push of the year. David called me into his office on a Tuesday morning and told me he wanted me on the core team. You've been doing solid work, he said, which from David was basically a standing ovation. I think you're ready for something bigger. I floated back to my desk. I texted Jenna immediately, huge news. Tell you at home tonight. When I got back to the apartment, she'd ordered Thai food and set up our living room like a celebration. There was even a bottle of champagne in an ice bucket. Tell me everything, she said, pouring us both glasses. So I did. I told her about the campaign, about David's faith in me, about how this felt like proof that I belonged here, that I could actually do this. She hugged me tight. I'm so proud of you, she said into my hair. I felt her arms around me, solid and safe, and thought, this is what having a best friend feels like. I had no idea I was standing at the edge of a cliff, about to be pushed. The first crack appeared on a Thursday morning, 2 weeks after I'd joined the campaign team. I was at my desk, responding to emails, when I noticed something strange. 2 coworkers who usually said good morning to me, Sarah from design and Marcus from product, walked past without even looking at me. Not just a casual ignore, a deliberate avoidance, like I was invisible. I told myself I was being paranoid. Maybe they were stressed. Maybe they hadn't seen me. Maybe I was reading into nothing. But then it happened again at lunch. I walked into the kitchen where a group of people were gathered, laughing about something. The moment I entered, the conversation died. Just stopped mid-sentence. Everyone suddenly became very interested in their phones, or the coffee machine, or literally anything that wasn't me. Hey, I said, trying to sound casual even though my heart was hammering. What's going on? Nothing, Sarah said quickly. Too quickly. We were just leaving. And they did. All of them. They left me standing alone in that kitchen with the fluorescent lights humming overhead and my lunch in my hands, feeling like I'd walked into the wrong movie. I texted Jenna, is something going on at work? People are acting weird around me. She responded immediately, what do you mean? I haven't heard anything. People are probably just busy. You know how it gets. I wanted to believe her. I tried to believe her. But the weirdness continued. Escalated, actually. I got left off email chains I should have been on. People stopped inviting me to meetings. In the one meeting I did attend, my ideas were met with silence. Not disagreement, not discussion, just this uncomfortable quiet that made me want to disappear into my chair. By Friday, I knew something was seriously wrong. That's when David called me into his office. I'd never seen him look uncomfortable before. David was always direct, sometimes brutally so. But as I sat down across from his desk, he couldn't quite meet my eyes. "Look," he said, tapping his pen against his notepad in this nervous rhythm. "I need to talk to you about some concerns that have been brought to my attention." My stomach dropped. "Concerns?" "There have been reports. About things you've allegedly said. About the company, about colleagues." He paused, clearly hating this. "About the work environment being toxic. About taking credit for other people's ideas. About complaining that you should have been given more senior responsibilities from the start." I felt like I'd been slapped. "What?" "David, I would never say those things." "Who told you this?" "I can't disclose that. But it's come from multiple sources, and HR wants to have a conversation with you." Monday morning, 9 a.m. Multiple sources. The words echoed in my head as I walked back to my desk in a daze. I hadn't said any of those things. I hadn't complained about the company. I hadn't claimed credit for anyone's work. The closest I'd come to complaining was venting to Jenna about normal work frustrations, the kind of thing everyone does with their roommates after a long day. Jenna? No, she wouldn't. But even as I tried to push the thought away, pieces started clicking together. All those detailed questions about my projects, the way she'd always wanted to know exactly who I was working with, what I was saying in meetings, how she'd sometimes rephrase things I'd said, adding an edge that wasn't there in my original words. I felt sick. I left work early, claiming a headache that wasn't a lie. The entire bus ride home, I sat with my forehead pressed against the cold window, trying to make sense of what was happening, trying to find an explanation that didn't involve the person I trusted most in this city. When I got home, Jenna was already there, working from the couch with her laptop. "Hey, you're home early. Everything okay?" She looked up with what seemed like genuine concern. I studied her face, searching for signs of guilt, of deception. I found nothing but the same warmth she'd always shown me. "I need to ask you something," I said, my voice shakier than I wanted it to be. "Have you heard anyone at work talking about me? Saying things?" Her expression shifted to confusion, then worry. "What kind of things?" "That I've been bad-mouthing people, complaining about the company, taking credit for work that isn't mine." "What? That's insane." She closed her laptop and sat up straighter. "Who's saying this?" "I don't know. David wouldn't tell me. But apparently it's come from multiple people. And now HR wants to meet with me on Monday." My voice cracked. "Jenna, I'm scared. I didn't do any of this, but someone is telling people I did." She got up and pulled me into a hug. Hey, it's going to be okay. This is clearly just a misunderstanding. You know how office gossip gets twisted. Someone probably misheard something, and it's spiraled. But what if they fire me? I can't afford to lose this job. I'll have to move back home. Everything I've worked for. "They're not going to fire you," she said firmly, pulling back to look at me. "You haven't done anything wrong. The truth will come out. And for what it's worth, I've been defending you to everyone." "You have?" "Of course. You're my best friend. Whenever someone brings up anything negative, I shut it down immediately. I tell them they don't know what they're talking about." She squeezed my shoulders. "We're going to get through this together, okay?" I nodded, wanting desperately to believe her. That weekend was torture. I barely slept. I rehearsed what I'd say to HR over and over, trying to figure out how to defend myself against accusations I didn't understand. How do you prove you didn't say something? How do you fight rumors that have already spread? Jenna was supportive the entire time. She made me comfort food. She ran through my talking points with me. She reminded me to breathe. Sunday night, she went to bed early. I stayed up, too anxious to sleep, mindlessly scrolling through Netflix on the couch. That's when I saw it. Jenna's laptop was on the coffee table, still open. The screen had gone dark, but when I moved it to plug it in for her, it woke up. I wasn't trying to snoop. I swear I wasn't. But there, on her screen, was a Slack conversation. And my name was in it. My heart started pounding as I read the messages. I knew I shouldn't. I knew this was a violation of privacy, but I couldn't stop myself. "Jenna, I'm really worried about her. She's been saying some concerning things about the company." "Someone named Tyler, like what?" "Jenna, that the culture is toxic. That David doesn't know how to manage. She even implied that the product team is incompetent. I've tried to tell her that's not appropriate, but she keeps venting to me about it. Tyler, wow. That's not cool. Has anyone else heard her say this stuff? Jenna, I think so. She's pretty open about it. I feel bad saying anything, but I'm worried it's affecting team morale. I scrolled up. There were more messages. Weeks of them. Different people. All containing versions of the same thing. Jenna, expressing concern about things I'd allegedly said. Jenna, twisting private conversations we'd had into evidence of unprofessionalism. Jenna, carefully, methodically destroying my reputation while positioning herself as the worried friend who was just trying to help. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the laptop. I kept scrolling, my vision blurring with tears. And then I found the message that made everything click into place. Jenna to someone named Rachel in HR. I hate to bring this up, but I think we need to discuss the concerns about my roommate. I have documentation of problematic statements she's made, and I'm worried about how this reflects on the team. I know there's a senior marketing position opening up, and I just want to make sure we're considering cultural fit in addition to skills. A senior marketing position. The promotion I'd been subtly told I was being considered for after the campaign wrapped up. She wasn't just destroying me for fun. She was eliminating competition. I sat there in the dark living room, my roommate sleeping peacefully in the next room, and felt something inside me break and reshape at the same time. I could have stormed into her room. I could have screamed. I could have packed my bags right then and moved out, consequences be damned. But I didn't. Instead, I took photos of everything. Every message, every conversation, every calculated lie. My hands were steady now, my mind suddenly eerily clear. Then I closed the laptop, placed it exactly where it had been, and went to my room. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, and made a decision. I wasn't going to play her game. I wasn't going to fight dirty or sink to her level. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of knowing I'd discovered what she'd done. I was going to stay quiet. I was going to document everything. I was going to do my job better than I'd ever done it before. And I was going to trust that the truth has weight, that lies, no matter how carefully constructed, eventually collapse under their own complexity. People who build houses out of cards always forget one thing. It only takes one breath of wind to bring the whole thing down. I just had to be patient enough to wait for that wind. In the next room, Jenna slept soundly, probably dreaming of the promotion she thought she'd secured by destroying me. She had no idea that she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life. Monday morning, I walked into that HR meeting with my head held high and my evidence stored safely in my phone. But I didn't use it. Not yet. The HR representative, a woman named Patricia with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, sat across from me with a folder full of complaints. As she went through them, reading out twisted versions of things I'd supposedly said, I listened calmly. "These are serious allegations," Patricia said, studying my face. "What do you have to say about them?" "They're not true," I said simply. "I never said any of those things. Not in the way they're being presented. I think someone has misrepresented private conversations I had, taken them out of context, and used them to damage my reputation." "Do you have any proof of that?" I hesitated. I could have pulled out my phone right then. Could have shown her everything. But something stopped me. "Not yet," I said. "But I'm asking you to look at my work. Look at my actual performance, not gossip. Look at what I've produced, how I've collaborated, what my direct manager says about my contributions to the campaign. Let my work speak for itself." Patricia made notes. "We'll be conducting a thorough investigation. In the meantime, I need you to maintain professionalism and focus on your job. Can you do that?" "Yes," I said. "That's all I've ever tried to do." The next 3 weeks were the hardest of my life. I went to work every day knowing that people were whispering about me. I sat in meetings where my ideas were met with skepticism. I ate lunch alone at my desk, while former friendly faces avoided me in the kitchen. And at home, I lived with Jenna. I made small talk. I smiled. I pretended everything was normal while she pretended to support me, all while knowing exactly what she'd done. It took every ounce of strength I had not to break. But I kept working. I poured everything into that campaign. I stayed late, came in early, double-checked every detail. I was professional with everyone, kind even to people who'd turned their backs on me. I documented every interaction, every meeting, every contribution I made. And I watched. I watched as Jenna started to unravel. It started small. She'd ask me questions about the HR investigation, trying to sound casual. Have they said anything else? Do they seem like they believe you? There was an edge to her voice, a tension that hadn't been there before. They're still investigating, I'd say neutrally. She started making mistakes at work. Small ones at first, missed deadlines, typos in presentations. Then bigger ones. She snapped at a colleague in a meeting. She forgot to include key stakeholders on an important email chain. The thing about lies is that they require constant maintenance. You have to remember what you said to whom. Keep all the stories straight. Make sure nothing contradicts. It's exhausting. And Jenna was getting tired. I also started noticing something else. Other people at work were beginning to notice inconsistencies in her stories. One day, I overheard Marcus talking to Sarah in the kitchen. I wasn't eavesdropping. They just didn't see me come in. I don't know. The timeline doesn't make sense, Marcus was saying. Jenna said she heard her complaining about me in the break room on Tuesday. But I checked. They were both in different meetings all day Tuesday. They couldn't have been in the break room at the same time. That is weird, Sarah said slowly. They saw me then and went quiet, but I saw something shift in Sarah's expression. A seed of doubt. More seeds were being planted, and I wasn't the one doing it. The lies were planting themselves. 3 weeks after the HR meeting, Patricia called me back to her office. My heart was racing as I sat down, but I kept my face calm. We've completed our investigation, she said, and I couldn't read her expression. We interviewed multiple people, looked at message logs, examined timelines. She paused. The allegations against you don't hold up under scrutiny. I felt something loosen in my chest. In fact, Patricia continued, we discovered that the source of these rumors was a single individual who made multiple reports through different channels to make it appear as though the concerns were widespread. This person also violated company policy by sharing confidential information and deliberately misrepresenting conversations. She didn't say Jenna's name. She didn't have to. We're handling this situation internally, Patricia said. But I want you to know that your record is being cleared. There will be a company-wide email clarifying that the rumors about you were unfounded. And on a personal note, she leaned forward slightly. The grace you showed during this process didn't go unnoticed. A lot of people would have burned bridges. You didn't. I left that meeting feeling like I could finally breathe again. The company-wide email went out that afternoon. It was vague for legal reasons, but the message was clear. I'd been falsely accused, and the matter was resolved. Within an hour, my inbox started filling up with apologies. Sarah, Marcus, people I barely knew, all of them saying they were sorry for believing the rumors, for treating me differently, for not giving me the benefit of the doubt. I accepted their apologies with grace, even though part of me wanted to ask where that grace had been when I needed it most. But the real shift happened 2 days later. I came into work to find Jenna's desk empty. Completely empty. No laptop, no photos, no half-dead succulent she'd kept by her monitor. She was gone. Fired, I learned later. Not just fired, walked out by security after HR's investigation concluded. Turns out, she'd violated multiple company policies. Sharing confidential information, creating a hostile work environment, using company resources to conduct a personal vendetta, and lying to HR during the investigation. That night, when I got home to an apartment that was just mine now, because she'd moved out in a single day, I didn't celebrate. I just sat on the couch and felt empty. Not victorious, just tired. 2 weeks after that, David called me into his office again. But this time, his expression was completely different. I owe you an apology, he said first. I should have trusted my own judgment about your work instead of getting swayed by office politics. That's on me. Thank you, I said quietly. But I also want to offer you something. He slid a folder across the desk. We're creating a new senior marketing coordinator position. It comes with a raise, more autonomy, and you'd be leading a small team. The job is yours if you want it. The promotion Jenna had tried to steal by destroying me. The universe had a sense of irony. I took the job. 3 months later, I was settling into my new role, leading the team, working on campaigns that actually excited me. I'd made real friends at work, people who'd stuck by me or who'd apologized genuinely and proven they meant it. I'd also moved to a new apartment, one without ghosts in the next room. That's when I got the message. It was from Jenna. A long, rambling text that started with, "I know you probably hate me," and ended with, "I'm really struggling to find work, and I was hoping you might be willing to be a reference for me." I read it 3 times, sitting on my new couch in my new living room. She was unemployed, struggling. Other companies had somehow learned what happened. Tech is a small industry, and reputation travels fast. She was essentially blacklisted, and she was desperate. A year ago, I would have felt sorry for her, maybe even helped. But I'd learned something important in those months of quiet suffering and patient waiting. I'd learned that kindness doesn't mean letting people who hurt you back into your life. That forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation. That you can wish someone well from a distance without offering them a lifeline they don't deserve. I typed out a simple response. "I'm not comfortable serving as a reference. I wish you well." Then I blocked her number. Because here's what I finally understood. The best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's building a life so good, so full, so authentically yours that the person who tried to destroy you becomes irrelevant. It's succeeding not in spite of them, but completely independent of them. It's reaching a point where their name doesn't make your heart race anymore. It just makes you grateful for everything you learned. I didn't destroy Jenna. She destroyed herself. That's what happens when you build your success on lies. Eventually, the foundation cracks. Karma didn't need me to be cruel. It didn't need me to plot or scheme or get my hands dirty. It just needed me to be patient, to keep showing up, to trust that the truth has its own gravity, and lies, no matter how carefully constructed, eventually get pulled into the collapse. I'm 21 years old, sitting in an apartment I earned, with a job I deserved, surrounded by people who actually know me. And the girl who tried to take it all away is just a story I tell now. A lesson I learned. A chapter that's closed. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is nothing at all. Sometimes silence is the most powerful weapon you have. And sometimes the best ending isn't the one where you win spectacularly. It's the one where you simply keep going, keep growing, and wake up one day to realize that the person who hurt you doesn't live in your head anymore. That's the revenge karma writes. And trust me, it's so much sweeter than anything I could have planned. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever had someone betray your trust, or wondered whether staying silent was the right choice, please subscribe to the Last Lesson channel. Every week, I share real stories about betrayal, growth, and the kind of justice that writes itself. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss a story. Because sometimes the lessons that hurt the most are the ones that change us forever. Thank you for listening. And remember, karma doesn't need your help. It just needs your patience.